The abandoned asylum. In 2009, I found myself drawn to a decrepit building on the outskirts of my hometown, a long-abandoned asylum that had stood empty for decades. The structure, known as Maplewood Asylum, had a dark history, notorious for its mistreatment of patients and whispered tales of hauntings. Local legends spoke of the souls of the departed trapped within its walls, seeking vengeance on the living. Despite the warnings from friends and family, I felt an irresistible pull to explore the sinister site. One crisp autumn afternoon, I gathered my camera, flashlight, and a few essentials, determined to document my experience. I arrived at the asylum just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the grounds. The air felt heavy, pregnant with anticipation. As I approached the crumbling entrance, I noticed the broken windows and peeling paint, remnants of a time when the asylum was a place of supposed healing. Now, it was merely a decaying shell, hiding secrets that had festered for far too long. Stepping inside, the atmosphere changed instantly. The musty scent of mold and decay filled my lungs, and the sound of my footsteps echoed ominously through the empty hallways. I flicked on my flashlight, illuminating faded, once bright murals that adorned the walls, now covered in grime and graffiti. As I wandered deeper into the building, I could hear the faint sounds of water dripping somewhere in the distance, adding to the unsettling ambience. I made my way to the main patient ward, where rows of small, barred windows still remained intact. As I peered into one of the darkened rooms, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. The room was void of furniture, but the shadows seemed to dance menacingly in the corners. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the hall, making me jump. I swung my flashlight around, but there was nothing but darkness. My heart raced, and I felt the urge to leave, but curiosity held me in place. I pressed on, determined to explore more. The air grew colder as I approached the basement door, its rusted hinges creaking eerily. After a moment of hesitation, I opened it, revealing a staircase descending into utter darkness. I turned on my flashlight and took a deep breath, then stepped down one creaky step at a time. The basement felt different, thicker, almost suffocating. I felt a weight on my chest, an unseen presence watching me as I ventured further down. At the bottom, I discovered a small, empty room with a single flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. My flashlight beam danced around, illuminating the walls, which were covered in strange symbols and drawings. It felt as though I had stumbled into the lair of something malevolent. The oppressive silence was suddenly broken by a low whisper, a voice, barely audible, drifting through the air. I strained to listen, but the words were lost in the shadows. Feeling uneasy, I turned to leave, but as I reached the door, I heard it again, a distinct voice calling my name. Sarah. It echoed around the room, sending chills racing down my spine. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, frozen in fear. The voice was familiar, yet strange, as though it was drawing from memories buried deep in my subconscious. Sarah, help me, it pleaded softly. Panic surged through me. I knew I needed to get out, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to find the source of the voice. I turned back and ventured further into the room, searching for any sign of who, or what, was calling me. As I approached the far wall, I noticed a small, half-hidden door. It looked old and weathered, but I felt a compulsion to open it. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open. The hinges protested with a haunting squeal, revealing a dark passageway that seemed to stretch on endlessly. I felt a sudden rush of cold air wash over me, and the whispering returned, louder this time, more urgent. Help me! Please! Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, I stepped inside. The narrow passage twisted and turned, and I could barely see ahead. The walls were damp, and I could feel the weight of the darkness closing in around me. As I ventured deeper, the whispers became more frantic, echoing through the corridor. Help! It hurts! You have to help me! Suddenly, the air grew thick with despair, and I stumbled into a small, dimly lit room. In the center, I saw an apparition, a ghostly figure of a woman, her face twisted in agony. She reached out to me, her translucent fingers trembling. "You're here to help, right?" she begged, her voice laced with sorrow. I wanted to scream, to run, but something in her eyes held me captive. "What happened to you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "I was trapped here, tortured by the doctors. They never let me go." Tears streamed down her ghostly cheeks. "I need to be free." In that moment, I felt a surge of compassion, but I also knew the danger. "How can I help you?" "End their reign of terror," she whispered, her voice fading. "Free us all." Before I could respond, the walls around me began to shake, and a deafening roar echoed through the asylum. The room grew darker, and the figure of the woman dissolved into the shadows. Panic seized me, and I sprinted back through the passage, desperate to escape the chaos. I burst into the main hall, heart pounding, and raced for the exit. As I crossed the threshold, a violent gust of wind slammed the door behind me. I stumbled outside, gasping for fresh air, the moonlight washing over me like a cleansing balm. I never returned to Maplewood Asylum. The experience haunted me for years, a chilling reminder of what lurked within its walls. The stories I had heard were not just tales of the past, they were the echoes of souls trapped in torment. Sometimes, late at night, I would hear the whispers again, calling my name, reminding me of the pain I could not ease. The descent into madness. In the fall of 2013, my friends and I stumbled upon an old, dilapidated house on the outskirts of our small town. It was said to be the site of a gruesome murder decades ago, a mother driven insane by the whispers of the dead, her children lost in the darkness of the night. Intrigued by the local lore and the thrill of the unknown, we decided to explore the place, armed only with flashlights and bravado. The moment we stepped inside, an uneasy chill washed over us, as if the house itself was exhaling a long-held breath. The air was stale, filled with the scent of damp wood and decay. Faded wallpaper hung in tatters, and the floor creaked ominously beneath our weight. As we moved deeper into the house, the shadows seemed to shift, curling around us like tendrils eager to pull us in. "Let's check out the basement," Mark suggested, grinning as he led the way down the narrow staircase. I hesitated, a voice in my head screaming that we shouldn't go further, but the thrill of adventure overruled my instincts. The basement door swung open with a groan, revealing a small, dimly lit space cluttered with broken furniture and moldy remnants of a lifelong past. As we moved around, our flashlights flickered, casting eerie shapes on the walls. In one corner, we discovered a dusty old mirror, its surface cracked and covered in grime. I stepped closer, wiping the glass with my sleeve. My heart dropped. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a face behind mine, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes staring back at me. I whipped around, but the room was empty. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mark laughed, dismissing my fear as nothing more than a trick of the light. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. "Come on, it's just a dumb mirror," he said, urging us to explore further. Reluctantly, I followed, but the unease gnawed at my mind. As we ventured deeper into the basement, the air thickened, and a low hum began to echo around us, like a distant choir singing an unholy hymn. The sound grew louder, resonating in my bones. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, fear creeping into my voice. The others nodded, their faces paling. The noise enveloped us, filling the room with a suffocating presence. We needed to leave. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. We were plunged into darkness. Panic set in as we fumbled for our flashlights. The hum turned into a cacophony of whispers, wrapping around us like a chilling embrace. Get out, the voices urged, each one more frantic than the last. "Let's go!" I shouted, but the others were paralyzed with fear. In the darkness, I could feel something shifting, something moving just beyond the reach of our lights. The whispers intensified, swirling around us, and I caught a glimpse of shadows dancing in the corners of my vision. Mark finally broke free from his stupor, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the stairs. We bolted for the exit, but as we reached the top, the door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The whispers grew louder, the walls vibrating with a dark energy. "Help us! Help us!" In a panic, I slammed my shoulder against the door, but it wouldn't budge. My friends were shouting, but their voices were drowned out by the rising chorus of whispers. "Join us! Join us!" The room felt alive, pulsing with an otherworldly presence. I caught sight of the mirror again, its cracked surface reflecting not just my terrified face, but something behind me, a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing like embers. It reached out, and I felt a cold breeze wash over me, freezing me in place. I turned to run, but the figure was suddenly right in front of me, its face a twisted mask of rage and sorrow. "Help us!" it screamed, its voice a cacophony of wails. I stumbled back, crashing into my friends. We scrambled toward the door, desperately pushing against it. The whispers morphed into screams, filling my ears with a deafening roar. In a moment of sheer adrenaline, I kicked the door, and it splintered open. We burst into the hallway, gasping for breath. The house felt alive, the walls shifting, warping as if trying to trap us inside. We raced up the stairs, not daring to look back. As we stumbled outside, we collapsed onto the ground, panting. I glanced back at the house, and what I saw made my blood run cold. In the upstairs window, a face peered out, a woman with hollow eyes and a twisted grin, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Then, with a shudder, the figure faded into the darkness, leaving only the sound of the whispers lingering in the air. We didn't speak as we drove away, the weight of what we had experienced hanging over us like a dark cloud. That night, I lay in bed, unable to shake the feeling that something had followed me. The whispers crept into my dreams, wrapping around me, pulling me back into the abyss. For weeks after, I felt a constant chill, a sense of unease that refused to leave. Friends began to notice changes in me, my laughter faded, and I became withdrawn, haunted by the memories of that cursed place. I could still hear the whispers, echoing in my mind, urging me to return, to join them. One night, the whispers grew unbearable. They filled my room, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I couldn't resist any longer. I found myself standing at the front door of the asylum once more, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on the ground. The door creaked open, inviting me into the darkness. As I stepped inside, I knew I was not alone. The whispers surrounded me, welcoming me home. The darkness swallowed me whole, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace, a twisted sense of belonging. The house had claimed me, and I was finally free to join the chorus of the damned. The mirror's reflection. It was a cold November evening when I first came across the antique mirror at a local flea market. The ornate frame, adorned with intricate carvings of twisted vines and grotesque faces, immediately drew my attention. The vendor, an elderly woman with sunken eyes and a crooked smile, warned me, "Be careful with that one, dear. It holds more than just reflections." I laughed off her warning, dismissing it as a mere sales tactic. Once home, I hung the mirror in my bedroom, its surface gleaming in the soft light. The first few days passed without incident. I admired the way it added an air of elegance to my room, but soon I began to notice strange things. At night, when the moonlight streamed through the window, the mirror seemed to shimmer, almost alive. I would catch fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures lurking just out of sight in the reflection, but whenever I turned to look, there was nothing there. One night, as I was preparing for bed, I stood before the mirror, brushing my hair. I felt a sudden chill in the air and glanced up, meeting my own reflection. But something was off. My reflection smiled back at me, a slow, sinister grin that didn't match my expression. I froze, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My heart raced as I stepped back, the image still smiling, the eyes glinting with malevolence. Panicking, I turned away and dove under the covers, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in my stomach. I convinced myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But that night, I was jolted awake by a soft whisper. "Help me." The voice was faint, almost like a breeze brushing through the room. My heart pounded as I peered toward the mirror. There, in the darkness, I could see a figure standing just outside the frame, a shadowy silhouette with a sorrowful expression. I pulled the blanket over my head, hoping to drown out the sound. I knew I should have gotten rid of the mirror, but a part of me was too curious to let go. What could it want? Days turned into weeks, and the whispers became a nightly occurrence, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. "Help me, help me," the voice was both desperate and haunting, echoing in my mind long after I'd tried to sleep. Then one fateful night, I found myself unable to resist any longer. I stood before the mirror, heart racing, and whispered, "What do you want?" The room fell silent, and for a moment, I thought I was alone. Then, slowly, the whispers returned, swirling around me, more urgent this time. "Let me out." Suddenly, the surface of the mirror rippled as if it were water. The figure emerged clearer now, a woman with hollow eyes and an anguished expression. "Help me," she cried, her voice echoing with desperation. I stumbled back, fear gripping my heart, but I couldn't look away. "Why are you trapped?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Trapped by my own reflection," she replied, her voice thick with sorrow. "I was cursed to live within this mirror, a prisoner of my own vanity. You must help me break the curse, or I will take your place." The room felt colder as her words sank in. I wanted to run, but a strange connection tethered me to the mirror. I was terrified, yet I could see her pain, the hopelessness in her eyes. "How can I help you?" I asked, the words escaping my lips before I could think twice. "Find the source of my curse," she implored. "The woman who trapped me still lives. You must confront her." That night, I barely slept. I scoured the internet for any mention of the woman in the mirror. After hours of searching, I stumbled across a local legend, an old tale of a sorceress who had been banished for using mirrors to trap the souls of the vain. Her name was Alara, and according to the lore, she was still alive, hidden away in a forgotten part of the woods. The next day, I made up my mind. I would find Alara and confront her. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and the determination to free the woman in the mirror, I set out to the woods where the sorceress was said to dwell. As I ventured deeper into the forest, the trees twisted and turned, the atmosphere growing heavier with each step. Finally, I stumbled upon a clearing with an ancient stone cottage, vines creeping up the walls like skeletal fingers. The door creaked open at my touch, revealing a dark interior filled with dusty trinkets and oddities. "Welcome, child," a voice crooned from the shadows. Alara emerged, her eyes glinting like shards of glass. "I've been expecting you." I took a step back, fear flooding my senses. "I want to free her," I declared, my voice shaking. "You have to let her go." Alara chuckled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You think you can bargain with me? She belongs to me now." In that moment, something deep within me snapped. "She deserves to be free." I shouted, the weight of my own anger surprising me. Alara's expression twisted with rage. "Foolish girl. You have no idea what you're meddling with." Before I could react, she waved her hand, and the air around me crackled with energy. I felt a pull, as if the very fabric of reality was bending. The next thing I knew, I was thrown backward, landing hard on the ground. In a blur, I found myself back in my room, heart racing. The mirror glimmered ominously, and the woman's face appeared once more, her expression now frantic. "You failed. You must try again." Desperation clawed at me. "How can I help you?" "Find the mirror that reflects the true you," she said, urgency creeping into her voice. "Only then can you break the curse." With newfound determination, I realized what I had to do. I took a deep breath, confronting the reflection staring back at me. "I won't let you keep her," I screamed, slamming my fists against the mirror's surface. Suddenly, the world around me shifted. I was pulled into the mirror, darkness enveloping me as I fell into an abyss. I tumbled through a distorted reality, the whispers echoing louder, mingling with the cries of countless souls trapped within the glass. As I landed in a surreal realm filled with flickering images of the past, I spotted the woman again, her face twisted in despair. You must confront Alara's spirit, she urged. Face your own darkness to free us all. With determination, I stepped forward, the energy pulsating around me. I summoned every ounce of strength I had, facing the memories of my own fears and insecurities. I could feel Alara's presence, dark and oppressive, attempting to suffocate me. Enough! I shouted, gathering the strength of the trapped souls. I will not be your pawn. The world around me trembled as Alara appeared, her form shifting and warping. You think you can defy me? She screeched, her voice dripping with rage. But I held my ground. You cannot hold us captive any longer. I cried, and in that moment, the mirror shattered, a cascade of light engulfing everything. I awoke back in my bedroom, the sun streaming through the window. The mirror lay shattered on the floor, fragments glimmering like stars. I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me, knowing that the woman had been freed, along with countless others. But as I began to clean up the shards, I caught my reflection in one of the pieces. My heart dropped as I noticed a single, hollow eye staring back at me, a reminder that some darkness never truly vanishes. The whispers were gone, but a part of me could still feel her presence lurking, forever etched in the corners of my mind.